Late last night, President Trump signed a bill to reopen the U.S. government. This is amazing. Over 700,000 workers can now go back from furlough and start earning a paycheck. The military can start getting a paycheck. Flights can resume so that we don't have 1,500 flights canceled a day, and SNAP benefits are being restored. This is monumental. And I can't believe that the Democrats tried to destroy America. Now, I, like many others, believe that the Democrat Party maliciously and purposely tried to crash the U.S. economy. Whether they got free money for illegals or not, having the U.S. government shut would hurt job numbers, GDP, money in the economy, and most all, President Donald J. Trump. They risked the country and got nothing. It was a giant waste of time, and now we're going to have to deal with the repercussions. Now, President Trump said last night during the signing ceremony that every American should remember that the Democrat Party voted against paying our military. They used hungry children as bait and tried to collapse the economy and got nothing for it because he was never going to negotiate with them. Now we're getting the first looks of the damage from this. Let me go ahead and pull this up and show this to you guys now.
Take a look at what the first round of that Democratic fight looked like. Nearly 42 million Americans lost their SNAP food assistance benefits. They were suffering. More than 5.2 million airline passengers faced flight delays and cancellations. 1.4 million federal workers went weeks without pay. And the White House estimates the economy lost about $15 billion every week of those 6 weeks. A massive hit of $90 billion over the entire shutdown. When you count everything all up, you can count them 10 zeros. House Republican Conference Chair Lisa McClain comes up in focus first.
All right. That's crazy. $90 billion. You've got 1.5 million workers who were taking loans in order to pay their basic bills. This is disgusting to me. I'm so grateful that the government is now reopening. Now, I have a special guest, Jonathan Otto, who's going to be joining me to go through a couple of really big stories. He's got some incredible information to share. He is also an investigative journalist like myself. So I'm going to go ahead and welcome him to the stage now. Jonathan, thank you so much for joining me.
It's my pleasure, Stephen. Thank you for having me.
I know based on your accent that you are not American, but what do you think of all of this turmoil that's been going on in the U.S. government?
Oh, well, no, thanks for asking. Ironically, because I'm Australian living in America, in a territory, at least in Puerto Rico, with my family, Americans, my wife and my children, I have dual citizenship. So I really kind of am in it as much as anyone else being in this country. And look, it's really hard. I think it's really hard because we're all wanting stability, security. We're all wanting to raise our families. I've got a 6 and a 4-year-old. I want the best future for them. I'm not just thinking about my life. I'm thinking about what does the future hold for them and how do I be part of the solution. It's also why I love people like yourself that are doing your best to advocate for a better tomorrow. And so, yeah, I get stressed like everyone else, but my whole, kind of motive or mantra is to trust in God and have faith that God will take care of things that we can't control while we seek to innovate and push for change in the areas where we can innovate change.
Yeah. Now, one of the big things that came out of this was it was on full display how broken Obamacare is and also how expensive medical coverage has become because of giving hundreds of billions of dollars to big insurance. Now President Trump is floating the idea of the Republicans getting rid of Obamacare, bringing in something new. But if nothing else, he says, why are we giving $150 billion a year to big insurance when they just keep raising their prices? Maybe we should be giving that to the American people. Let me show you what he had to say from the Oval Office.
It's going to go down. It went the exact opposite with the biggest increase of healthcare in any country. It's a disaster. And I'm calling today for insurance companies not to be paid, but for the money, this massive amount of money, to be paid directly to the people of our country so that they can buy their own health care, which will be far better and far less expensive than the disaster known as Obamacare. And I've had, I think, great support. I've even had Democrat support. So we want the money that would be going to the insurance company, which is hundreds of billions of dollars. You know, their stock prices have gone up by 1,000% in many cases, 1,000% over a short period of time, because our country stupidly pays them so much money with this Obamacare scandal. So I want the money to go directly to you, the people. And you go out and you'll buy your own health insurance and you'll negotiate different plans and you'll get much better insurance and you will be an entrepreneur for yourself. So I'm always willing to work with anyone, including the other party. We'll work on something having to do with healthcare. We can do a lot better. We can do great.
All right. You are in the medical space. You're also an entrepreneur like myself. Whenever government gets involved, everything just gets more expensive. Everything becomes more difficult. What are your thoughts on him saying we need a better system, and if nothing else, just give the money directly to the people?
Yeah. Look, Big Pharma has been preying on people for too long. I don't like calling out anything when it doesn't need to be called out, but this one is very obvious to people. And it's very obvious that the incentive isn't to heal people, it's to keep people on medications. You take a condition like a thyroid condition, and if the doctor decides it's a big enough problem, they'll give you radioactive iodine that will burn out your thyroid, so you no longer have a thyroid, and then you're dependent on thyroid medication for the rest of your life. And now think about how, and we'll get more into this, but think about how shocking and how much of a crime that is when a 12-month study showing red light over the thyroid in combination with vitamin D and selenium equated to the enlarged thyroid for these women with Hashimoto's thyroiditis. 96% of them went to having a normal sized thyroid, 96%, which probably means the 4% didn't actually do it properly, which, you know, leans even more towards a complete success, a complete remission for even as much as all of them if it had been performed ideally in every individual. I'm hypothesizing that, but at least 96%, which was proven. So you think about that. We need actual solutions to problems, not just monetizing. Because remember, disease is a money business for these predatory companies. So yeah, I've got a problem with people preying on people, and I believe that sentiment is very much true.
Yeah, I mean, what they want is for you to be just sick enough to stay alive, so that they can milk money out of you for the rest of your life. You know, I had to get an MRI recently. And through insurance, it was over $5,000. But because I don't have insurance and I'm a cash pay, it was $600. So like, why are people paying into insurance and then they have to, still come out of pocket with massive amounts of money? It's just wild. And I hope RFK Jr., I pray for him regularly because he's doing so much with, PepsiCo just announced they're taking all the dyes that have been linked to disease and cancer and obesity out of their products. You've got, hundreds of companies that are making, big changes to their protocols. One of the biggest, though, Alex Jones, goes off on one of the biggest things that Big Pharma has done to poison the American people and our children. And RFK, he just announced, you got 90 days to get out of this. You are poisoning the American people.
Here's Senator Kennedy. Now, there's a 3-month notice in the federal law. That 3 months is over, and now there is no longer any thimerosal sold anywhere. That's high levels of mercury in the shots, and basically that's just outlawed almost all the vaccines that are out there. They aren't even really vaccines. So this is a devastating victory against Big Pharma. He cut all the funding for new mRNA shots, took it off the recommended list, which gives it liability protection, and he's just getting started. He only got confirmed, 7 months ago. So this is a hallelujah movement. You want just getting all this done with Kennedy, getting Trump in just with what Kennedy's done is worth it. So yeah, celebrate the good stuff and thank God for it. Here's Kennedy.
That no human being should suffer from exposure to mercury. You came together to protect future generations from this potent neurotoxin, and I'm looking forward to continued progress. Article 4 of the convention calls on parties to cut mercury use by phasing out listed mercury-added products. But in 2010, as the treaty took shape, negotiators made a major exception. Thimerosal-containing vaccines were carved out of the regulation. The same treaty that began to phase out mercury in lamps and cosmetics chose to leave it in products injected into babies, pregnant women, and the most vulnerable among us. We have to ask why. Why do we hold a double standard for mercury? Why do we call it dangerous in batteries, in over-the-counter medications and makeup, but acceptable in vaccines and dental fillings? Thimerosal is a mercury-based preservative that has never undergone proper safety testing in humans. Hundreds of peer-reviewed studies identify it as a potent neurotoxin, a mutagen, a carcinogen, and an endocrine disruptor. Thimerosal's own label requires it to be treated as hazardous material and warns against ingestion. There is not a single study that proves it's safe. That's why in July of this year, the United States closed the final chapter on the use of thimerosal as a vaccine preservative, something that should have happened
a long time ago. So are we going to thank God for this? God's giving us victory after victory. Are we just going to be like babies and bitch and be blackpilled and say not enough's happening fast enough? I've been doing this 31 years. We were moving about a mile an hour against tyranny then. We're moving like 100 miles an hour now comparatively. Yeah, so, and I'm going to go after Trump and other people when they're not doing what we know is the best. We're going to hold the feet to the fire. We're going to expose the bad operatives in there. But baby, we're in the driver's seat and we're in the pole position. For those who know what that means, we're in the lead.
A lot there. This is a huge victory. The fact that mercury is considered the most poisonous metal on the planet, it's actually considered a neurotoxin. When all of the countries got together and decided that science proves that this is dangerous, it can give you cancer, it can make you sick, it can give you all kinds of autoimmune diseases, the dental industry and the vaccine industry, they bought their way on there. And as he said right there, when they're done with a vaccine vial, they have to consider it extremely dangerous. With metal fillings, when they remove them, they have to treat them as a biohazard. And yet they can put it in your mouth, they can put it into your arms, and there's 25,000 times the legal limit in every vaccine given to children. What are your thoughts on this monumental removal of mercury from the vaccine product?
It's amazing. It's amazing. I was in Kennedy's home 11 years ago talking about thimerosal with him for a film called The Truth About Vaccines, and which was almost like a sequel to a film that I was a producer on called The Truth About Cancer. And it was just beautiful. And because I do a lot of kind of interviewing, finding out what it is that motivates people. I asked him for his deeper motivation for why he's doing that. And it really moved me at the time, and it moves me now to see him making these choices that are clearly based on helping to make children's lives better. We all know somebody whose child isn't able to speak or have developmental delays to the point where they don't have a normal life. And this is an absolute travesty. Is mercury part of that? Absolutely. Is it proven to? Absolutely. And there's enough gaslighting that's happened in that. And any parent that has done their research knows that it's just absolutely sickening for the amount of gaslighting that's still happening today. But who cares? Forget about the naysayers. We've had a victory. Let's celebrate that. And I will say as well, the reason why these solutions exist is because there's a threat. There's the polio. There's this bigger boogeyman out there. And I'm not saying that that's not a problem. I'm saying that there's solutions that are not toxic. And why aren't they being talked about? And I'm going to share some of those. And one of those examples is because you'll notice I'm coming back to therapies like red light therapy, and we're going to go deeper into that. But this is a great point. It was a long COVID study, and it was 62 participants, and I'll show it on slides in a second. It showed 100% success in all cases, and in all 62 after just 4 long sessions of red light. And this was for long COVID. And that was all acute symptoms were resolved within within 2 sessions, and then after 4 sessions, or it was 2 or 3 sessions, I'll show the slide, but then it was a complete resolution after 4. And so if that were the case, wouldn't that be the treatment that you would have got? So that then, and I'm not going to go too hard on this because I don't want to get us in trouble with the platforms that we're on. But my point being, there were solutions that completely restored the oxygen levels, that completely stopped the dysapnea in these cases and restored executive and cognitive function. Why don't we hear about those from the mainstream?
Yeah, because there's not money in it the way that there is with Big Pharma. Big Pharma has captured the journals. They've captured the FDA, the CDC. They were working in cahoots with the WHO. So I'm grateful that RFK and Trump are so focused on making America healthy again. I love the MAHA movement. Okay, I want to ask you, you mentioned something about long COVID. I see in my community, who I just love, people saying that they know people that died from the vaccine. They know people that are extremely sick from COVID. I got extremely sick from COVID. I believe somebody got the vaccine, there was vaccine shedding, and then I got extremely, extremely sick. And what was recommended to me was that I use kimchi to rebuild my gut flora because that gets wiped out. It was also recommended that I do red light therapy. So I started doing red light therapy. I noticed my skin improved, my cognitive abilities improved, my muscle structure, so many things. So why is the human body so drawn to the sun and specifically to red light?
Yeah, fantastic. And you can show this this slide that it's not a slide. I'm going straight to the website for the European Society of Medicine. So I'll answer the first part of that question first, which is that, one, for people suffering from this, and I'm probably a little bit more careful with you because I'm really protective of people's channels. I don't want to get anyone hurt. So this was an example here where, like I mentioned, it was after 2 sessions that within 3 days, all 62 had complete recovery from all acute symptoms. And just mind you, long COVID, if you do the research, you'll find that this is predominantly people that have had the vaccine, so a vaccine injury. In some cases, it can be just COVID itself. But if you wanted to be really conservative, I could say you'd be at least 50-50 out of the 62 people. So people that are listening to this that have had a shot and they feel either worried and they're asymptomatic, but they're worried that maybe there could be a problem, you really need to listen to what I'm saying. Those that have got noticeable challenges as a result, I do believe that this is the number one therapy. And look at this, full recovery occurred within 4 sessions for all photobiomodulation patients, all but 2 cases resolved within, look at that, 1 week. And then this prophylactic benefit, so it was protective in 17 out of 17 patients that were exposed to viral shedding of infected family members. And then the resolution of outcomes was dyspnea resolved, which is shortness of breath, oxygen above 97%, digestive distress resolved, brain fog, memory recall restored executive function. And then the only ones that, and emotional deficits, the only ones that they couldn't resolve were these 2 cases, 0.25%, which was severe long COVID anxiety and nosophobia, which is the fear of getting diseases. And these actually are more cognitive, mental conditions caused by like watching CNN. So look, I think that this is a really good sign for people. And this says specifically that the LED pads were the ones that were most successful because they delivered high affluences. So this really does give people hope. And like, that's one condition, but there's so many conditions that you're going to see as scoring as being, very effective, because many people are watching this and maybe that's not their challenge, but they do have another challenge and they want to get a solution. And so these are the awesome truths that we hold. And to answer your question, the reason why light is so responsive to the body is arguably because of how we came to be. Let there be light is listed in the Bible as being the genesis of all life. And we see that in the body, that everything relies on light, and we're not getting enough of it because of the lives that we live. And also the most healing parts of the light are in the red spectrum, and where that the irradiance at a sunrise and a sunset is it has some benefit, but it's so much more, up to about 40 times the delivery when you have a device. And that's why when I show you these depths of penetration with red and here even blue light, which which is during the day. If it's non-flicker based, it's actually very healing for the body. You can see how it's penetrating deeper layers from the epidermis through the interior tissues. But whether it's weight loss or fat burning, cellulite reduction, metabolism, anti-aging, these certain wavelengths are now proven in clinical studies, just like the one I showed you, acne, scars, rosacea, to not only be therapeutic and manage the symptoms, but actually turn around the condition. Like with hair growth, that you're turning around the condition. It's not just a Band-Aid. Sun damage, wrinkles, fine lines, droopy eyelids, under-eye circles, broken capillaries, pain relief, wound healing, injury healing, oral health, muscle building, athletic performance, post-recovery workout, cognitive performance, depression, tinnitus, anxiety. Even this one, stem cell regeneration, how much are people spending on all of these things? And then we get into cancer, Parkinson's, liver, fertility and sperm mobility. It just keeps going. Eye health, genital and other simplexes, acne, circadian rhythm. It's pretty impressive, right, Stephen?
Yeah, it is. And, going back to, God said, let there be light, and we're commanded to be the light of the world, to people. But they're like, are there receptors within the human body? Because I know a lot of people, they're not sleeping as well as they used to. And a lot of that comes down to they're not getting enough sunshine. They're not getting, almost every American is vitamin D deficient. So we're not getting the benefits of the sun. That's why I like these red light panels that are behind you. And I own one of those. I've been doing this red light therapy. And people say to me all the time, you look younger, you look healthier. What are you doing? And I tell them I've been doing red light therapy and eating better and walking more. I go out in the sun with my shirt off as often as I can. I'm really trying to let my body heal itself. So why specifically does the body want red light versus blue light when it comes to healing?
Yeah, absolutely. It's fascinating. Okay, so it's interesting that biologically you see red, you see full spectrum sunlight during the day will have some red, but there's a lot in the morning and the evening, sunrise and sunset. So you see these examples. For whatever reason, it's just how our bodies are designed. These wavelengths do penetrate deeper, and that's probably the simplest and most straightforward answer, that they penetrate deeply. And I could show you fascinating studies because like this one here, you'll hardly believe this. Show this on the screen here. This was an in vitro study, but it was human cell lines with breast cancer. And this kind of illustrates this point that there's certain wavelengths for certain conditions. And the Nobel Prize was won by Niels Ryberg-Finsen in 1903 for reversing lupus vulgaris. Okay, so he was using UVB light, and UVB light still is powerful. You see blue light being used for jaundice babies, the bilirubin, all this. So but the red is specifically good for getting deeper into the body, and the near infrared. But then once you get into mid infrared and far infrared, you're now in a different realm. And so the red and mid infrared and near infrared go between about 600 to 1100 nanometers. And so when they were looking for the anti-proliferative benefits of red light for triple negative and non-triple negative breast cancer, they tested 4 different wavelengths: 615, 630, 660, and 730. And it was the 660, just one of them. It was just 660 that was able to drop the proliferation, the growth, by 40% in 24 hours. And it was LED again. Okay, so these are examples at that 660 is the peak of red, and the reason for this is, Stephen, is that you're landing on a target. Think about it like an archer. So look at this here. I'll show you the wavelengths there. So again, you see the wavelengths. So if you're getting into up to 660, your subcutaneous tissue. So right here, that was important for it to hit and interface, in this case, with the breast. But if it was acne, it would be 480 because that's getting a shallower layer. If it was collagen for the skin and elasticity, that would be 590. And then if it was near infrared, which you can't see visibly, and the reason why you can see all the panel lit up behind me is because it's got dual LEDs. So 2 different light sources coming out of the same. So you've got red and near infrared coming out of every bulb there, which is amazing. It's not common. And then, and again, the 2 things you're looking for here is irradiance, the amount of power delivered, which over 200 milliwatts per centimeter squared at 3 inches. And then we've got all of these 9 wavelengths in our devices, which is almost unheard of. There's basically no other products like it. But once you get through the 810, 830, 850, 1060, you're getting into these deeper layers, the muscle, the bone, interior tissues. And that's why you'll see like these ones that I mentioned. But then also, if you get into fertility, you'll have a look at prostate cancer, colorectal cancer, lung cancer. There's studies on this: mitochondrial health, lupus, fibromyalgia, stroke, arthritis, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, diabetes, neurodegeneration, and eyesight. So even Alzheimer's. And yeah, so I'm really excited that yes, light works, and it's these particular wavelengths that are most proven in clinical studies to have the most benefits in these conditions, and many more, and arguably anything, because at the end of the day, you have mitochondria in your cells, in your organs, and you need to get light onto those so that they can generate energy. So you asked about receptors. They're called chromophores. They receive light, and then the mitochondria then take that light and produce ATP, adenosine triphosphate, and they use that immediately and then store that like a battery. And they use that to inherently detoxify the body, and also to generate new stem cells and to help those stem cells mature and grow. And that is the process of how light works.
Okay. Let me ask you this. I saw two doctors talking about how, like, they've had their mind blown as they've dug deeper into red light therapy. I can't remember the one guy's name, but he was on Diary of a CEO. And he talked about having these patients that were in the hospital for weeks and weeks, and they were hitting them with vitamin C. They were hitting them with antibiotics. They were hitting them with all kinds of big pharma, modern day medicine. And finally, the guy's like, okay, these guys, they've been in fluorescent lights for weeks. I want them rolled out. So they got these beds and they rolled them out. And within a day, their oxygen levels started going up. Their red blood cell count started to change. The white blood cell count started to change. Just being out in the open was amazing. Then this other doctor, Dr. Jack Kruse, one of the top brain surgeons in all of America, he said the number one thing he does after brain surgery is he makes sure that people get outside into the sunlight. So, like, those blew my mind. Like, two top doctors saying that their secret weapon is to make sure that people are getting light exposure. What are your thoughts on that?
No, that's fantastic. And I love that. They're right about that. And they're not new in that. It was people in the early 1900s were doing that at what were called the sanitariums, which were basically integrative hospitals. They would get their patients into the sunlight. John Harvey Kellogg was an example of this, and he was part of that blue zone with Loma Linda, Seven-Day Venice, and why you look at why they're living to 100 and beyond without aches and pains and memory loss. I even interviewed one of those guys, 104, retired as an active surgeon at age 95, which is Elmsworth Warren, a fascinating individual. So you've got this amazing science of the fact that yes, you need sunlight, and the great takeaway for everyone here is without anyone having to do anything other than just get out into the sunlight, take your shirt off, and ideally don't like have lotions all over your skin. Hopefully you haven't soaped yourself up and clogged all your pores. Arguably water is all you need to actually clean your skin, but what you will, but get out into the sunlight without sunscreen, especially in those peak hours of the day, sunrise, sunsets, when the sun is not too harsh. And then look into why, when we test irradiance, the amount of power delivered, the sun versus a red light device like what I have behind me, if it's what we've proven is that it's about 40 times the strength. And because of that, you can accelerate healing, just like what you're seeing in these studies, which are breathtaking and extremely profound. One thing we could do as well, Stephen, is just let people know where to go. For anyone that's just watching till this far, to make sure that they know where to go if they want to get something like this.
Yeah, if people want to go to myredlight.com and use code Stephen25 for 25% off, or if you bundle something, you can use Stephen30 for 30% off. But they've got stuff from a belt that goes around your back or on your waist, or you can lay over your heart or over your face, to the panels that you see behind Jonathan. People can definitely check that out. Let me ask you a question.
Absolutely.
They say that people in Seattle or that are higher above the equator towards the North Pole, they deal with depression more than people that are in areas like El Salvador, Puerto Rico, Florida. Doesn't that have to do with how much light exposure they get throughout the year.
It's true. It's true. So the sun is even weaker in those regions based on where they are on the equator. And as a result, it's all the more reason for people to do that. Even if it's getting, this is really funny, even if it's getting in front of a $10 chicken lamp. Okay. Right. So other folks would say, yeah, well, look, my body is it's like a Mercedes or Ferrari. So I really don't want to use a $10 chicken lamp that, and it's funny, if you do the math on a chicken lamp versus a panel like this, the chicken lamp will start costing you more because of energy consumption.
Electricity,
Yeah. So it's like great to make an investment in your health. And that's why we do payment plans as well. But, health is a really great way. Just light is really arguably the biggest key to harnessing health. And it's the biggest missing link. And it gets us past this issue that we're having with nutrient deficiency in the soil, because then you're able to cause energy production within the cells, because food is trying to do that as well. But light will just shoot straight through the body. Think about the fact that people have digestive issues. And so light will just penetrate right through the skull. If you open your eyes, look into the light, and UCL University tested this, after 3 minutes of exposure, it was 17% improvement in eyesight immediately. And that lasted for a week. And if I showed you all these studies, you'll find that they'll do a 9-month follow-up. They haven't even been on red light for 9 months. And those treatments have often held. With the eyesight, it lasted a week because it was only 3 minutes. But if they did it more regularly, you could actually expect it to hold longer. Pulse electromagnetic field therapy, I'd show you all the studies that show that the treatment holds for 6 months, up to 6 months. And then if you do it more frequently and you're doing it either daily or a few times a week, then the improvements are so much better, and you're actually getting all these improvements in other areas. And so what red light is to replicate the sun, PEMF, pulse electromagnetic field therapy, is replicating the Earth's magnetic field. So it's like grounding, but on steroids, and it's about 1 million times the amplitude, based on emerging science that has proven that. And I could show you what I've got there on the screen illustrating that. But look at that one. This is a great study on childhood myopia. This one was on 6,400 children and 41 clinical studies, clinical trials, and red light was the #1 thing that stopped vision worsening in children and preventing the eyeball from elongating too quickly. So if you've got children in the home, grandchildren, you could prevent eyesight issues. If you're older, I had a 92-year-old that for the first time in 6 years could read within the first 24-hour period of getting light into her eyes directly. And then within a few weeks, she reported that her macular degeneration had turned around as well. She could also see out of the peripherals of her eyes, which she wasn't able to do. And she had nerve pain in her feet. She recovered from that, doesn't have that anymore. So that's Joanne, 92 years old. I've been tracking these case studies. You mentioned that you saw that picture of the belt, and that's like a few $100 product for those that feel like maybe they can't, I don't have much money. Well, that was an example where, I've got a case study. Dee Dee, she was, she had quit part-time work as a massage therapist, and then she had a 9 out of 10 pain score. That was the reason. So she used that red light belt, and she was able to turn around her pain to the point where she's at a 0, and she reclaimed her $48,000 a year salary on literally a product that cost her a few $100s. Which again, people could do that on a payment plan and be paying like, $20, $30 a month. It's accessible. And then mind you, if you get a panel like this of what's behind me, by the way, I'll show you guys about this. You can make me go full screen. I'll show you guys with an EMF meter. So this is a 0 reading now. I'm going to put it in front of my computer or against my phone. You'll see those numbers go right up and it's beeping, right? So now I'm going to put it against the device, and there it is at a straight 0. So you've got 0 EMF exposure. Part of the reason for the high quality and the immense radiance that's delivered is why groups like the Hope for Cancer Center in Tijuana, Mexico. This was Dr. Tony Jimenez that wrote the recommendation saying that this book is not only recommended, it's essential, and that this is this is a life-saving tool is what he quotes this as. And Dr. Tony Jimenez is now using these devices with his, is now rolling them out with his patients as part of their treatment protocol. So when you're looking at high quality devices, typically you would be, which is what you have here, which is what you have in your home, Stephen, you typically could be spending a fortune, but we've made it accessible for people. So it literally is affordable, and we're giving you guys 25 and 30% off discounts. And what that means, and by the way, that's an exclusive limited time. And so that can expire at any time. So just be aware of that. I don't want people to miss out. So I'd jump on that. It's a really great opportunity. But these are the things that really make it possible for people. And something like that, whereas if you look at a reorder on a supplement, like here's a supplement here, if I'm reordering this every month, this one's actually a $90 supplement. Let's take a more conservative number. Let's say it's $50. That's for, and I'm a family of 4. So I'd be up at $2,400 for the year if you do the math on that. And now if I, over the next 10 years, I'd be at $24,000 just for a single supplement, or if it was a 4 supplement protocol just for me, same number. The RL Pro 300 Max, 205 milliwatts. When I mentioned that thyroid study, it was an abnormal result, but if you looked at the specs, it showed specifically that it was a 200 milliwatts device, and hence why that makes more sense now. And it's got, again, all 9 wavelengths, a 3-year warranty, 50,000 rated lifespan hours, which equates to about 80 years if a whole family is using it. So you're actually getting something to last a lifetime. And so I just want to encourage people with that to use a therapy that can last a lifetime instead of just yo-yoing from one thing to one thing. And that's all at myredlight.com using the codes that I just mentioned.
Okay. Yeah. And you guys have a range of belts all the way up to giant panels and beds and all that. So people should definitely go check that out. Well, this is something, again, my doctor, who's an alternative medicine professional, turned me on to all of this after I got really sick. I have felt the benefits of it. I use your products in my house. If people want to learn more, they can go to myredlight.com, code Steven25 for 25% off. Jonathan, thank you so much for coming on. We'll have you on again to go through all of this. I would just recommend, whether you buy anything or not, do some research on red light therapy. It blew my mind. It is one of the fastest growing areas of medicine. You've got medical doctors now coming out saying that this is absolutely has to be integrated into people's well-being, getting over depression, brain fog, better skin, better digestion. So thank you so much for coming on. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.